Welcome back. New at 10 tonight. Family of an inmate killed in a brutal attack at a Salinas Valley State Prison that was all caught on camera has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. His father telling KTVU's Amber Lee he wants changes, that his son's death was preventable, and that the lawsuit is about preventing this from ever happening to another inmate again. Amber joins us live here in studio with more. Amber?
Frank Joseph Mendoza had been in prison since 2009 and was serving a 26-year sentence for robbery and attempted murder. His father tells me his son was a young man attending Merced College at the time and had made a mistake. He says he was waiting for his son's release in about 3 years and that the 36-year-old had hoped to be an illustrator for children's books. Now that will never happen.
These images are still in my mind, how he was assaulted and killed.
Ismael Mendoza says his son Joseph, an inmate at Salinas Valley State Prison, was killed last April. He was stabbed about 180 times and killed by other inmates while allegedly under the watch of prison guards.
Of course, I'm sorry for your loss. However, this is something that young people nowadays need to understand. Yes, you might consider living a life of crime. You don't want to work. You don't want to follow orders. You have an issue with authority. You have a right to basically, if you want to go out and commit crimes for a living, you have that option. However, the consequences are also the consequences come with making those choices. My issue is that these types of videos right here are usually kept in the dark and they're not promoted. Kids in high school, kids in junior high should be shown these videos while they're in school. This needs to be a part of the learning process for young men. People don't understand the punishment is in the process. It's not necessarily, how much time you're going to get in jail, because the truth of the matter is, especially if you're in California, any sentence you receive is potentially a life sentence, because you will likely, a lot of men do die in prison. See, the way it works in jail is that it's an ecosystem. It's kind of like its own separate society with separate rules and no women. But just like any other society, there are regulations you have to abide by. You can't steal from other people. You can't rob other people. You can't lie to people. And if you go into debt, well, if you don't pay, there's punishment. There are people who enforce those rules. And then also there's the whole subject of sex. That's the part of me that made me not want to get in trouble or want to, figure out how to cut corners and commit crimes and do bad things, because, at first when you're a kid, you're like, oh yeah, let's go do this. Let's go run around with my friends. But luckily I had a cousin that was a little older than me, and he told me about juvenile hall. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I was like, I can fight. I'm a big, I'm a kid that can fight, so I can go to jail. He was like, you could, but he said there was another part of the whole juvenile experience that a lot of people don't talk about. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. He was like, after we beat certain kids up, and apparently he was telling me that him and the kids from his neighborhood, they would beat up people. And once you're unconscious, once you're not awake anymore after they beat you unconscious, they pull your pants down. And they will take it from you. And I was like, because I thought that was gay. But apparently that's jail. Gay sex and then murder are also a part of the sentencing that they fail to tell you when you're talking to the judge, to the prosecutor, to anybody. Everyone kind of wants to shy away from that part of the procedure. That's the only part I'm concerned with. Therefore, if I came to a fork in the road, I went to the right. There was no way I could continue on knowing that's in the future. These kind of videos, yes, they are graphic. Yes, they are horrible, but attempted robbery, attempted murder, these are also horrific crimes. You also had the option to go work at Jack in the Box. I remember, I went to jail for a DUI before. And I remember sitting in jail thinking to myself, I'd rather be working the grill at some, diner in some faraway shack in the middle of nowhere than just sitting in this place bored to death every day with a bunch of professional losers who are in and out of jail. Every guy that was in there when I was in there, because I didn't know I was going to jail. I thought I was going to just get a fine. I was barely over the limit, got pulled over, bailed out the next morning, whatever. But the problem was I was from a different state, and I went to jail in Michigan. And when they were like, and then the judge was a total piece of shit. She was, I believe she got removed. But, there was another guy that was in there with me. She gave him 1 year for driving on a suspended license, on his second offense suspended license. Me, I was on my first and only, not even extreme DUI. I got 3 months. And I remember going to court thinking I'm just going to get a fine. She was like, you know what? I know who you are. Your lawyer showed me your commercial. I had a commercial on the air because I was living in Michigan for work. And, I was just, super young kid, just there. And she was like, you know what? I don't think a financial burden is going to be a punishment for you. Decided to give me 3 months in jail out of the blue. And I was like, for a 1 DUI? I went to a camp, so I didn't really go to like a prison or a setting like that. The point is, no matter where you go, you are going to have personality conflicts. And yeah, it was when I got in there, I was angry, I was aggressive. The worst part about being in jail is not being in jail, it's that eventually you're going to get out. So all of your bills, any of your rent, your car payment, mortgage, you potentially are going to lose everything. Then when you get out, you got to figure out how to catch back up and kind of fold back into society. Even if you're only in there for a month or two, it's still time away from the world. At any given time now, when I was in there, I got into fights because I was angry about just being in there. I'm frustrated. Me and my girlfriend are arguing, whatever. At any time when you're in jail, there's not always a guard standing in between everybody. It's really just men dealing with men. Some people don't have the social skills to get along. At the time, I had not mastered those. The only thing I was good at is being mad and fighting. And if you unfortunately come across someone like myself who has a chip on his shoulder and you have a smart mouth, it's not going to be a great experience for you in jail. And like I said, they talk about jail like it's no big deal. You watch these movies and shows, they glamorize it. They promote it. No one wants to tell you that even if you're in there for a month, you could die in jail. You could be doing a 2-week sentence and die. The best thing to do is fly straight and avoid the system. When I talk about America first, it's Americans first too. I'd rather Americans are more productive people. I don't want to see us creating a prison industrial complex by just putting our warm bodies in there. But if I look at it, a lot of my friends and relatives who went to jail were in jail because the jobs that were pretty much promised to us when we became of age, 17, 18, they were all taken by illegals. So a lot of people just went to doing stuff in the streets because there was nowhere else to go. We didn't have Uber back in the early 2000s. We didn't have DoorDash where we can do driving and make extra money. We really had to go try to figure out a way out of no way. But every time I go somewhere, every business I walk into, there's an illegal alien working. They completely kicked us Americans out of the workforce, completely kicked us out to the streets. Now, if you're a woman, you can live on the county, you can live off of the state. But if you're a man, it's not so easy. You're going to have to figure it out. And sometimes the law and what you figure out, they don't necessarily run parallel. They intersect with one another, and you can end up in jail. And the consequences and the penalties are extreme. There are millionaire celebrities that are getting stabbed up and almost dying, like Tory Lanez, in jail right now. I think if Tory Lanez would have seen this video before he decided not to take the stand in his own defense, he would have said, fuck Kelsey and her kid. Let me focus on me and my family first. I'll go back to the video.
We're still grieving. I've, I've had sleepless nights. There's some days I can't function.
And adding to the family's pain, Mendoza tells me prison staff used their personal cell phones to film the attack off the closed circuit television system inside the prison and shared it on social media. The video went viral, and Mendoza says that's how he learned that his son was the victim of a brutal attack. Civil rights attorneys hired by the family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Now, now sometimes I take an issue with that. It wasn't the jail that did this. It was the other inmates. The prison cannot be in complete control over everybody at all times. This isn't Demolition Man where you put somebody in a cage and you can just freeze them. These are men that are interacting with each other. They can plot on each other. They can make moves, and there's really not much you can do. You can't be everywhere at all times. So I don't understand everything's a money grab anyway. No matter what happens, everybody wants to sue and blame everything and blame everyone else. No one's taking any accountability for themselves, for their own actions. And, I don't want to say maybe it was bad parenting on the dad's fault, which is why his son was in this situation. But you do, as a parent, have to hold yourself accountable. Even if we don't, as a society, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, how much of this was my negligence? What did I do wrong? Why did my son end up here, but the next man's son didn't? You got to ask those questions. Those are important. But again, it's a money grab. You want to get paid. You're in a state like California. You can sue a ham sandwich and you can win. You can, I've seen people in California sue for the most ridiculous things and win some money. So if you go to jail, if you're injured, you can sue. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because the jails do have a certain level of protection that they should be able to ensure the prisoners, but it's not always guaranteed. And if you get yourself in trouble, you do run the risk of forfeiting your life by even temporarily going to jail. That is a risk. And that's why I said, in my opinion, these videos and this risk should be a class that's taught in schools to children to help deter them from a life of gangs or being in the streets. Kids have to know that, hey, you can do it. You have the right to go join a gang and go commit crime, drive around shooting at people. However, there will be lots of man sex that comes along with it. And I think that right there would deter a lot of kids. And all the kids aren't gay. It's not going to be a smorgasbord. It's not going to sound like a smorgasbord to every kid. Some kids are going to be like, really? Yeah, gangbangs, you don't say. But other kids are going to be like, you know what? I'm good on that. I'd rather go apply for a Subway or go do something else productive. I don't want to get in trouble. Trying to impress women with a bunch of money that you had to steal from somebody else, and then you end up in jail where there's no women. That is probably one of the most important deterrents I think you can give a young man. This man right here, he needed it. I don't think he understood the risk of going to jail. The jail is not the punishment. What happens while you're in jail, that's the real punishment.
The guards who are there to protect him, who are duty bound to safeguard his well-being, essentially sat on their hands and did nothing. And then after he had been attacked for about 3 minutes, they finally did what they were trained and supposed to do.
Attorney Adante Pointer says by the time the guards intervened, it was too late.
3 minutes and you want to demonize the guards? So the guards are Flash Gordon. The guards are super fucking man. They move at the speed of light. You are a prisoner with other prisoners. There are thousands of them there. Guards change shifts. Guards are in other booths that are secure. Guards get attacked too. They only can move when other guards are there to back them up. It's not safe for anybody in these institutions. So you can't just throw the guards under the bus like they didn't do their job. Your job is to stay out of there in the first place.
The 36-year-old had died. In court records, state officials, including Attorney General Rob Bonta, denied the allegations by the Mendoza family and their attorneys. Prison officials identified Edgar Frere and Nicholas Young as the attackers. The prison said that medical aid was initiated for Mendoza. They said Frere and Young were placed in restrictive housing pending an investigation.
I'm not looking for revenge. I'm just looking for that somebody else's son or daughter doesn't come in a box.
That comes with jail. Death and murder, those are components. When you're put into a box, with other people who have killed people and murdered people. You might get killed or murdered by one of them too. If you're in jail for murder, you're in jail for life, or you're doing 25, you don't have an out date. You're not looking forward to going home. You have nothing to lose. The prison and the life in the jail becomes your world. That is your life. So there's a hierarchy, there's respect, there's money, there's a whole financial system in jail. We don't know what kind of trouble he got himself into, but they didn't just pull his name out of a hat and say, oh, guess who dies today? This was earned. And because they're all from the same racial background, it seems like this was over a debt. He owed somebody some money. He wanted to get high, and maybe his family cut him off. Maybe his dad was like, I'm not sending you any more money in there, not until you get out. And when your family cuts you off while you're in jail and that's your only lifeline, and you owe somebody, people, if you're in, my cousin is in jail right now. People get killed over $10. If you run into debt with somebody over $10, $10 can go a long way in commissary. If that person keeps seeing you and you don't have their money, and you can't get someone on the phone to cash app his relative or somebody he knows $10, but you promised you would be able to do it when he gave you whatever he was getting from you, you can get killed for that. It's just that shit comes with the territory. Again, kids and most people don't understand how prison works until they get to prison. This should be taught in schools. I remember the TV show Scared Straight. I remember when they started putting restrictions on letting the guys get too close. I remember back when they used to get in your face and you could see them spitting on the kids. And I was like, those kids did not live a life of crime after that. And a lot of these kids don't have a father. They don't have a male figure to talk to them about punishment and just real life scenarios. And their mother's a pushover. She's using the kid to get child support from some man that doesn't talk to them anymore. They're not even really raising these boys. So you're leaving them up to their own devices, and then you're dumping them in the system. Before they get there, these types of conversations, a video like this is so abhorrent and graphic. You could just imagine that being yourself. But what if you could do something to avoid that by just making better decisions when your friends or other people are trying to get you to go do certain things? Because that comes with being young, rambunctious people. But you don't want to accidentally get yourself in trouble. There's been a few times in my life where I had a friend who was like, oh, yeah, let's go here. And, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay. And they ended up getting pulled over, or they went and committed a crime. Just me being in the car with them, I would have been in jail with them. I remember that happened to me a long time ago. And everybody got sentenced to like 9 years. I just happened to leave. Something told me just to leave. And I'm glad I did. You waste a lot of time in these jails, but that's if you survive being in there. It doesn't take much for you to end up like this man's son, unfortunately.
It's out of prison early. Why? Because they got killed. This needs to stop.
Mendoza says his son had repeatedly asked to be placed in protective housing after being caught with contraband, but his requests were ignored. Mendoza wants reforms that include banning prison staff from the use of their personal cell phones on the job, and that staff receive retraining.
So his son was caught with contraband. Where did he get it from? Where did he acquire the contraband? Nothing's free, especially in jail. Whoever he got the contraband from, they wanted to be paid. And if you don't pay, what do you think they're going to do? Because if they let you get away with not paying them, then their whole organization in jail is going to get looked at as being weak and soft. And they're going to need the other 100 inmates to make sure they pay on time. They can't let one person just embarrass them and walk around like they don't owe. So they make an example. If these are men who are not getting out of jail anyway, this doesn't mean anything. It just gives them more stripes. That's not really a punishment. How do you punish someone that's already in jail for life? And in these liberal states, you're not going to get the death penalty. You get free housing for the rest of your life. Everything's free. Free food, free bed, free television. A lot of inmates get tablets with Wi-Fi, and they can make free phone calls all day long from the tablet. You don't even gotta call collect anymore. It's like they're doing what they can to make jail so much easier to go through and so much more acceptable. Maybe so that more people would stop trying to avoid going to jail, and maybe certain people wouldn't stop trying to do appeals to get out, because that's how they make money in the system, is by keeping you in jail. If less people go to jail, they're going to lose money, and they need to keep that level of occupancy up. I look at the prison industrial complex like I look at a hotel industry. You don't want too many vacancies. You want to be full. So that's why I think that they're not really wanting to discourage kids from getting in trouble and going to jail. They want you in there. That's where they make money off of you. But I'm against that. I want people to stay out of trouble. I want Americans to do better. I want Americans to prosper and to take advantage of all the freedom that we have and the opportunities by just speaking English and being in the country with citizenship. The opportunities are limitless. So you're better off listening to someone like me than some of these other people that are going to want to deter you and send you in the wrong direction. You should be grateful to be here in the United States, and you should never take this privilege for granted, because don't get it wrong. This is a privilege. This is not a right. It's a privilege to be here. You can do so much more than throw your life away and waste it in prison. You can do better. That's just my opinion. Like and subscribe, share the video. I'll be back on live in about 20 minutes. Remember, it's America first and America only. Like the page, like the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Thank you for tuning in.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.